All right. Hi there, Dr. Marziaz, if I can call you Mandy.
Mandy's fine.
All right. It's so good to see you. So this is really one of my favorite parts of this job is getting to see sort of what people got from the program, what changed so much in sort of what you were doing before versus what you're doing now and what you're up to now. So let's dive in a little bit with your story before you started in the Women's Health Coach Certification Program.
Yeah, so I'm a chiropractor by license, and I always worked in women's health. Even in my chiropractic business, always dealt with a lot of stressed out type A women. And yeah, like 2020 hit, my business got shut down. So there was that piece of like, do I want to be in a brick and mortar anymore? And then there was the piece of, I'm limited to my geographic location on women that I can help. And so transitioning to an online business was my idea to be able to, expand my reach. And I needed some new skills for that because I learned functional medicine and that was really good. It helped me dig down into root causes, but people, you can give them these really expensive protocols and they don't, it's overwhelming. They can't implement it all. And a lot of times you don't need all these expensive supplements and things if we can work on the underlying, emotional components. And that gets help with health coaching. So I probably kicked the tire for about a year before I decided to join the health coaching program.
So what were some of your hesitations? I think a lot of times people, when you come from a more complex clinical background, you've learned lots of functional medicine skills and lots of even innovative hands-on skills, everything from manual therapies to lasers to red light therapy, right? All these dry needling. You come with a lot of complex skill sets. It almost feels too simple, I think, for some people. Was that it, or were there some other hesitations for you?
Yes, to be honest, I didn't think I needed to become a health coach. I'm a doctor. I'm a chiropractor. I studied functional medicine. I don't need this piece. And that probably caused me to slow down and kick the tire for a long time. And I was kind of like, I'm a clinician. I don't really want to get into the, psychological stuff. I didn't become a therapist for a reason. And then I realized that I really couldn't help women on the level I wanted to help them on if I didn't learn these skills. And it's very different. I'm still not a therapist, right? So it's very different than that. But I'm able to really get down into those limiting beliefs and, what keeps us stuck. Like even me, I work in healthcare. I know I shouldn't be on screens before bed. You guys still do it. So it's not that we don't know what to do. It's that we have to drill down to why we're doing it. And so that's what really helps now.
Yeah. So what were some of your aha moments when you were like, okay, I guess I do need coaching skills. I'm giving my clients really excellent protocols and recommendations and strategies. And yet sometimes they're just not doing them, or they're pushing back, or they're feeling like they're not working. And you're like, okay, it's time for me to learn a skill set of coaching integrated with functional nutrition, because we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? All these other tools are really good. And we do teach that, of course. But when you got into it, what were some of your aha moments?
Yeah. So first I joined what was called the Clinical Mastermind at the time. Now it's your Advanced Women's Health membership. So I joined the Clinical Mastermind because you're an expert in women's health and I wanted more information on that. And one of the benefits of that program was the weekly Zoom calls where we can ask case questions. And I was always asking questions and you were always coming back with, this is a coaching problem. Get into coaching. And I'm kind of known as the stress doctor as I specialize in working with type A women. So you really can't drill down to that without getting into their underlying reasons and their limiting beliefs. And, why do we keep ourselves in chronic fight or flight? And I also found like the women that when I started the women's health coaching program, so that made me like say, okay, I'm going to save up for this and just do it. And I had an opportunity. I made some extra money working a second job. And I was like, all this money is going to this program. I'm already sold. And when I started working with it, it was like drilling down to those women that were stress is the underlying factor and, a nervous system that's dysregulated were the underlying factors of what was going on. With coaching, I could really drill down into how to help them, navigate that. And now their monthly supplement bill went down, and, they didn't need to be as particular. I mean, you still need to eat a pretty healthy diet, but, on a stressed out body, even the perfect diet isn't going to be successful. So all those other things that, us type A women are like, I don't have time to be cutting all these vegetables and doing all these things. Like, great, we don't have to worry about that first. But we have to use coaching to get down into this, like, why are you living your life chronically stressed out? And so that was just really a big aha moment for me. And, kind of used it in my own life. I actually used some of the health coaches in the group to help me with my own health. So.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think almost all of our students and graduates that I talk to really at some point, and I've done this too, is use this to start with our own selves as like the case study, because the reality is we're all swimming in this water of kind of, hustle culture, and everything has to be done perfectly, especially for women, and women have 3 jobs at the same time, and including, everything they're doing at home. And so we can't just patch that over, even with really useful clinical tools, until we get to that root cause of why they're so stressed and what support networks they have, and really sometimes make major changes in their lives. It's hard to implement a healthy lifestyle. So when it comes to that, you've turned the mirror on yourself, and you've done really amazing work on, and continuing to. I think all of us, it's a lifelong journey. It's not like a before and after of immediate, like, oh, I just moved to a tropical island and laid down for the rest of my life, So we're always navigating how to do it and also do meaningful work. So what would you say was kind of your favorite thing about navigating through the program, some of those aha moments, and then how has it changed your own life?
Yes. So when navigating through the program, I think the biggest lesson I learned there as a clinician is talking less. So as clinicians, we want to be prescriptive and educational. We want to give them all the information, but it's so empowering to sit with someone and let them kind of navigate that road themselves and kind of come to their own conclusions. Like, a lot of women, we know what to do, and it's in there. We just have to quiet down and create the space for it to come out. So it's, now I've been doing this for a couple of years, and it's second nature. But in the beginning, it was really hard to keep my mouth shut. So, and then in my own life, same thing with the health coaching. Like, it would just be this cycle that I'm sure a lot of women get on, where we know what we should be doing, we don't do it, or we fall off the wagon, we beat ourselves up over it. So, we're just creating more stress and more stress. And then because we're beating ourselves up, well, I'm not eating healthy tonight. I'm going to get takeout and a bucket of ice cream and, all the things, right? Like, I already fell off the wagon. And so now I can be easier with myself and not beat myself up so much, and just kind of step back and say, okay, like, currently I am on a little COVID recovery journey. And so I am able to say, okay, you know what? Last week you didn't rest enough. So this week, what can we do with our schedule to add more rest days in there, or more rest time in the afternoon? But I try not to get on that, like, oh, you were bad, Mandy, you worked too hard last week, because it's not really productive. Yeah. And in health coaching, like I said, it's so client led, which is really beautiful, because we don't, as clinicians, we put all this pressure on ourselves. I have to be perfect, and I have to have all the answers. And no, the answers are out there, and they're going to come out in the sessions.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, because there is almost like a religious perfectionism sometimes in wellness about, like, we have to eat perfectly 100% of the time. And, if you don't, there's something bad or shameful about that. The reality is women are simply trying to live fully. They have a lot on their plates. Sometimes they've chosen to put it there, which is also great, like the option that they have that. And sometimes they just need a little space to take a look at it, as you did. And we're like, okay, and it's an evolving process, right? Oh, this week, a little more rest. this week add a little bit better nourishment rather than feeling like 100% of the time, perfect eating. Oh, I stayed up an hour too late last night. Time to beat myself up, because I think culturally the sort of perspective of wellness is actually getting worse because there's all this perfectionism around doing all of this perfectly. So I really like how you've modeled that. And now you work with so many type A women who struggle with that. What are you seeing in the session when you just give them that space? Like, how does it shift for them?
Yeah, like what's amazing is, so I specialize in working with women going through the menopause transition. I love working with type A women. Most of my clients are very high achieving women. And what's beautiful is, they come to me and they've tried everything. They've been to nutritionists, they've been to doctors, they've been to all the things, and none of it's worked, right? And there's lots of symptoms, brain fog, moodiness, not sleeping. But the number one symptom that they're all dealing with is weight loss resistance. Mm-hmm. And then it's that cycle, right? You're beating yourself up because, I should have eaten healthier yesterday. But what I see that's so beautiful is in doing the health coaching work, they find sustainable ways to make these changes. Like A, it doesn't have to be perfect, but B, what works for your life. I mean, a lot of these women are like, I'm an empty nester. My kids moved out. I don't want to spend 4 hours a day in the kitchen cooking. But how can we do this so you're not eating out 7 nights a week with food that you can't control how it's prepared? So, and finding them unravel that. And I would say over 90% of the women I work with, the most beautiful thing is we're type A. We don't want to hear about stress resilience or better stress management. We don't want to hear it because we're like, I thrive on stress. That's what fuels my tank and has gotten me to this point in my career. And to see them come to their own conclusions. I had a client recently that said, she's like, I just changed my business model. She's an entrepreneur, so that I'm doing more group work, less one-on-one client work, and I can have more time in my day for me. And I'm like, that was so beautiful. And while I did a little pieces of, battering and education on that, she was very resistant. But then she came to her own conclusions about it and was like, I can just have a better life this way. And that's what's so beautiful. And when we come to our own conclusions, we're probably going to really make the changes rather than I'm only doing this because Dr. Mandy said to,
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, that's so true. I think when people are like, oh, I see now how this could work for me. And they've even kind of designed the how, it's much more motivating. And as you said, probably you even said it at one point, like planting the seed, giving a little education, but then they come to it, a couple weeks later as if it's this brand new idea, but it's really just that they're ready now. They've got a safe space with you where they can explore these various options. Because I think, a lot of this comes from that really stressful perfectionist work and school kind of hustle culture. It starts when we're like 6 years old, right? It's like, don't get up to go to the bathroom. You're in class now, or like, it's the whole water we swim in. And so as your client actually just gets like a few droplets from you of education around other options, then slowly she can start to see it for herself. And we have all these tools, but sometimes I feel like we're working for them more than they're working for us. So, that's really, really nice to see. So within the structure of the program, what are some of your favorite things about the Women's Health Coach certification?
Yeah, well, of course, I love that there's like the functional nutrition piece that you go into. So we do get some of those clinical pearls, but really I learned, like motivational interviewing skills, how to ask these open-ended questions so that your clients are able to kind of go on their own self-exploration with it, helping them, map out their vision, because like I said, my number one complaint, weight loss resistance, but it's not about the number on the scale. It's never about that. 90% of my clients, it's about their self-confidence that goes with that number on the scale. I don't feel confident as a businesswoman anymore, So really getting down to those things and being able to ask the right questions so that they start to see a different picture. Like I work with a lot of chronic autoimmune conditions, and it's very easy to just take on an identity as a sick person. Like, that's it, I'm sick every day. cool. So what does your life look like when all of this is resolved? And,
Yeah.
and they can start to really picture how their life could be better. And again, it's all coming from them. So I loved learning to ask the questions and learning to, everybody hits a point where things are going to get hard, right? So how do I, tailor those questions so that we can stay on track? Because I feel like people are really gung-ho in the beginning and it's easy to work with clients then. But what happens, 3 months in when they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Or I don't, you kind of plateau, right? Like you're not having this sharp, like, oh, everything's getting really better. And then I know what questions to ask to keep them focused on their vision so they can keep going.
And how has the community been helpful for you, or the fact that you can engage with us regularly?
Yes. So Jessica, you over deliver all the time. So we get to, hop on weekly Zoom calls with you where we can ask case questions, which is super helpful because, I have a lot of complicated cases and it's been really helpful to get guidance on that. And then there's a Facebook community and everybody in there has different areas of expertise and we're just also supportive of each other and so helpful. So if you have questions, you pop them in the group and there's right away, like 10, 12 people answer your questions. So that's been really helpful because sometimes you buy these programs and it's like, first you get in the program and you have no guidance. And throughout the whole program, I had a master health coach that I worked with. So she was able to answer questions and keep me on track. And, I did practice sessions with her. So that was really helpful. And we get these retreats where we get to have a whole day where we practice in small groups and learn different things. So that's very helpful. But then, most programs just stop. And even as a graduate, I still can hop on the women's health coaching calls every week and get more questions answered because now that I'm actually practicing this, things come up and it's like, okay, how do I coach through this? And, that's just been great.
Oh yeah. I so appreciate that because I agree with you. A lot of times you go to a training and you just like, okay, I was there for two days, in person, or I did a 3-month online course and then it's over and there's no opportunity to stay engaged with the community. And I think without that, I felt the same way as a clinician because you're like, then you actually get to using all of this and you're like, wait, what about in this case? What about in this case? So yeah, I really love that. I mean, we have graduates from years and years ago, more than a decade, who still show up on our live community coaching calls, who stay engaged with our community. And I think that the strength of having, had this program for nearly 15 years now builds such a dynamic community where everyone's really supportive. So I'm glad that's been good for you. So if you were, sitting in someone's shoes who's maybe a little on the fence about this, they're just like you, they're a really skilled clinician, but they want a really simpler, kind of healthier way for them to practice, because I think that's one thing we're never ever taught in any of our other clinical training. Like, how do you also maintain your own health for 30 years, 40 years of doing this work? If they were on the fence, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, because that was me. I was on the path to burnout. I thought I needed $1 million chiropractic business and everything that goes along with that. And even when in the transition, I was doing both. So I was doing the chiropractic business and some in-person health coaching, some online health coaching, but it was just way too much. And so, yes, I would say, if you're on the fence, first of all, Jessica will always hop on a call. A discovery call with you, which was super helpful. I think I hopped on 2 of those with you.
Yeah, we have a whole admissions team now. They're happy to help you. Yeah.
Right. And your team is amazing. You have the best people on your team. And to just do it. I personally don't think I've paid twice as much for programs that I 100% regret doing, where I didn't get any support. It was just a bunch of modules that was disorganized and things like that. And whereas everything is so organized and you could definitely charge twice as much and I would have paid it. So, I say just take the leap. And if you really want to, 2 things, as Jessica said, take care of your own health because, if we're not healthy, we can't help people. I can't be totally stressed out, living in chronic fight or flight and show up and help the women I work with because that energy comes through even on the screen.
Yeah.
And number two, if you really want to help clients, like I can't tell you how many people get better. And I'm doing less work. Like I don't have to come up with some crazy functional medicine protocol with, $2,000 a month worth of supplements that, no one is ever going to stay on long term. I mean, I don't do crazy detoxes. I don't do any of that stuff. And women, they get results. So if you really want to, affect change, like this is the missing piece, I think, in clinical education.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mandy. Do you have any last minute words of wisdom before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think I've pretty much said it all. Like I said, just health coaching, it's where it's at. I mean, we definitely, we need more of it out there in the world. And we're seeing more and more companies get involved in offering health coaching and things like that. And, there's just so many things you can do with it. And if you are a clinician and a health coach, you've got the magic sauce there. So.
Yeah, I really do think increasingly the sky's the limit because, when I started doing this work 10, 15 years ago, there weren't really jobs in health coaching. But now, many of our graduates love having their own businesses and their own practices because they get to be so flexible. It can be exactly what they want. But also, if you are not interested, as you said, in finding a job and starting a company, more and more places are offering jobs in health coaching, which is really nice if you just want a little bit more, if that's just more what you enjoy in your work life and you like a particular kind of work-life balance. There are lots and lots of companies searching for these skills now, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Even doctors' offices are now hiring health coaches so that, you can help the patients implement the things the doctor's recommending. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much today for your time, Mandy. I always enjoy just hanging out with you, of course. And I'll see you soon on one of our coaching calls and one of our group calls because, the community is really where the magic happens. So I'll see you there. And thanks so much, everyone, for being with us today. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jessica.